Hi, welcome back. Again, my name is Mrs. Duncan, and we are talking about theme this week. So as I start to share my screen, go ahead and think about what did we discuss in our first lesson about theme? What do you remember? Theme. Our learning target again, I can recognize and identify a theme or lesson of a fictional text using key details for support. So that's what we worked on yesterday, recognizing and identifying a theme and looking at those details that help support that theme. So a little bit of review from yesterday. Theme is the message, lesson, or moral the author wants you to get from the story. What does the author want you to learn from that reading? Remember, it's universal. You remember what that word means? Universal means it applies to everybody. So when we think of our theme, when we state our theme, we're not going to use any character names. A story could have more than one theme. There may be two stories or more stories that have the same theme. So there are a few things we need to remember to ask ourselves as we're trying to identify a theme. We're going to start with what is the topic or the topics that the book is about. And then we're thinking about how does the character grow or change, or characters if there are more than one going through this. And what does the character learn? So thinking about that topic, what does the character learn about that topic? And we're paying attention to the characters, the conflict. Remember, the conflict is what goes wrong, the problem, something is not going quite the way it should be. And the resolution, how the story ends up and how the problem is solved. So we are going to identify a theme in the book, A Bad Case of Stripes by David Shannon. This is going to be read by the actor Sean Astin, and it is presented by StorylineOnline.net. And you can access StorylineOnline.net and check out the other stories that are on there as well. Okay.
The story I'm going to read to you is called A Bad Case of Stripes, written and illustrated by David Shannon. Allie loves this book. I hope you do too. Camilla Cream loved lima beans, but she never ate them. All of her friends hated lima beans, and she wanted to fit in. Camilla was always worried about what other people thought of her. Today, she was fretting even more than usual. It was the first day of school, and she couldn't decide what to wear. There were so many people to impress. She tried on 42 outfits.
Let's stop there and think about what we've learned about the character Camilla so far. What are some things you've noticed? She cares strongly about what other people think of her, right? She loves lima beans, but she won't eat them because other people laugh at her. It's the first day of school and she's got to try on 42 outfits because she's trying to impress other people.
But none seemed quite right. She put on a pretty red dress and looked in the mirror. And then she screamed. Her mother ran into the room, and she screamed too. "Oh, my heavens," she cried. "You're completely covered with stripes." This was certainly true. Camilla was striped from head to toe. She looked like a rainbow. Mrs. Cream felt Camilla's forehead. "Do you feel all right?" she asked. "I feel fine," Camilla answered. "But just look at me." "You get back in bed this instant," her mother ordered. "You're not going to school today." Camilla was relieved. She didn't want to miss the first day of school, but she was afraid of what the other kids might say. And she had no idea what to wear with those crazy stripes. That afternoon, Dr. Bumble came to examine Camilla. "Most extraordinary," he exclaimed. "I've never seen anything like it." Are you having any coughing, sneezing, runny nose, aches, pains, chills, hot flashes, dizziness, drowsiness, shortness of breath, or uncontrollable twitching? No, Camilla told him. I feel fine. Well then, Dr. Bumble said, turning to Mrs. Cream, I don't see any reason why she shouldn't go to school tomorrow. Here's some ointment that should help her clear up those stripes in a few days. If it doesn't, you know where to reach me. And off he went. The next day was a disaster. Everyone at school laughed at Camilla. They called her Camilla Crayon and Night of the Living Lollipop. She tried her best to act as if everything were normal. But when the class said the Pledge of Allegiance, her stripes turned red, white, and blue, and she broke out in stars. The other kids thought this was great. One yelled out, "Let's see some purple polka dots." Sure enough, Camilla turned all purple polka dot. Someone else shouted, "Checkerboard!" and a pattern of squares covered her skin. Soon, everyone was calling out different shapes and colors, and poor Camilla was changing faster than you can change channels on a TV.
Let's discuss what's happening in this part of the book. So Camilla had to go to school wearing all those stripes, right? The first day of school, she couldn't figure out what to wear. She ended up with stripes. Now, what's going on? All of the kids are yelling things out to her that they think she should have on her, and she keeps changing to fit what the other students are saying.
That night, Mr. Harms, the school principal, called. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Cream," he said. "I'm going to have to ask you to keep Camilla home from school. She's just too much of a distraction, and I've been getting calls from the other parents. They're afraid those stripes may be contagious."
Do you know that word contagious? Contagious means that your germs can be spread to other people and make other people sick. So they're afraid that whatever Camilla has, other kids would get her germs and then be covered in spots and stars and polka dots.
Camilla was so embarrassed. She couldn't believe that 2 days ago everyone liked her. Now nobody wanted to be in the same room with her. Her father tried to make her feel better. "Is there anything I can get you, sweetheart?" he asked. "No, thank you," sighed Camilla. What she really wanted was a nice plate of Lima Beans. But she'd been laughed at enough for one day.
So let's discuss that again. At the beginning, we said that Camilla was really worried about what everybody else was thinking about her. And now she had to go to school covered in stripes, and she had polka dots and checkerboards and flags and stars. And she still won't eat the lima beans because she doesn't want people to laugh at her anymore. So she's still not doing something that will make her happy.
Well, yes, I see, Dr. Bumble mumbled when Mr. Cream phoned the next day. "I think I'd better bring in the specialists. We'll be right over." About an hour later, Dr. Bumble arrived with 4 people in long white coats. He introduced them to the Creams. "This is Dr. Grop, Dr. Sponge, Dr. Cricket, and Dr. Young." Then the specialists went to work on Camilla. They squeezed and jabbed, tapped and tested. It was very uncomfortable. "Well, it's not the mumps," concluded Dr. Grop. "Or the measles," said Dr. Sponge. "Definitely not chicken pox," put in Dr. Cricket. "Or sunburn," said Dr. Young. "Try these," said the specialists. They each handed her a bottle filled with different colored pills. "Take one of each before bed," said Dr. Grop. Then they filed out the front door, followed by Dr. Bumble. That night, Camilla took her medicine. It was awful. When she woke up the next morning, she did feel different. But when she got dressed, her clothes didn't fit right. She looked in the mirror, and there, staring back at her, was a giant, multicolored pill with her face on it. Dr. Bumble rushed over as soon as Mrs. Cream called, but this time, instead of the specialists, he brought the experts. Dr. Gourd and Mr. Mellon were the finest scientific minds in the land. Once again, Camilla was poked and prodded, looked at and listened to. The expert wrote down lots of numbers. Then they huddled together and whispered. Dr. Gourd finally spoke. "It might be a virus," he announced with authority. Suddenly, funny little virus balls appeared all over Camilla. "Oh, possibly some form of bacteria," said Mr. Mellon. Out popped squiggly little bacteria tails. "Or it could be a fungus," added Dr. Gourd. Instantly, Camilla was covered with different colored fungus blotches. The experts looked at Camilla and then at each other. "We need to go over the numbers again back at the lab," Dr. Gourd explained. "We'll call you when we know something." But the experts didn't have a clue, much less a cure.
So again, what just happened there? The experts or specialists were suggesting things that might be wrong with Camilla, and she was changing to fit what their suggestions were. So we know when she tried on all the dresses, then she became striped. When she went to school and the kids laughed at her and told her what they wanted to see, she changed. Now she's changed when the doctors are suggesting what might be going on with her. So let's continue reading and see what happens.
By now, the TV news had found out about Camilla. Reporters from every channel were outside her house, telling the story of the bizarre case of the incredible changing kid. Soon, a huge crowd was camped out on the front lawn. The Creams were swamped with all kinds of remedies, from psychologists, allergists, herbalists, nutritionists, psychics, an old medicine man, a guru, and even a veterinarian. Each so-called cure only added to poor Camilla's strange appearance, until it was hard to even recognize her. She sprouted roots and berries and crystals and feathers and a long furry tail, but nothing worked. One day, a woman who called herself an environmental therapist claimed she could cure Camilla. "Close your eyes," she said. "Breathe deeply and become one with your room."
And what do you think is going to happen when this person suggests to become one with her room? Thinking about everything that's going on, every time someone suggests something, what happens?
"Well, I wish you hadn't said that," Camilla groaned. Slowly, she started to melt into the walls of her room. Her bed became her mouth, her nose was a dresser, and two paintings were her eyes. The therapist screamed and ran from the house. "What are we gonna do?" cried Mrs. Cream. "It just keeps getting worse and worse." She began to sob. At that moment, Mr. Cream heard a quiet little knock at the front door. He opened it, and there stood an old woman who was just as plump and sweet as a strawberry. "Excuse me," she said brightly, "but I think I can help." She went into Camilla's room and looked around. "My goodness," she said with a shake of her head. "What we have here is a bad case of stripes, one of the worst I've ever seen." She pulled a container of small green beans from her bag. "Here," she said, "these might do the trick." "Are those magic beans?" asked Mrs. Cream. "Oh, my, no," replied the kind old woman. "There's no such thing. These are just plain old lima beans." "I'll bet you'd like some, wouldn't you?" she asked Camilla. Camilla wanted a big, heaping plateful of lima beans more than just about anything, but she was still afraid to admit it. "Yuck," she said. "No one likes lima beans, especially me." "Oh, dear."
So think about that again. She's gone through all of this and she still won't eat the lima beans, even though she loves them, because she doesn't want anybody else laughing at her. And why do you think that little old woman brought the lima beans in the first place? Somehow she knew that that's what Camilla really wanted.
The old woman said sadly. I guess I was wrong about you. She put the beans back in her bag and started toward the door. Camilla watched the old woman walk away. Those beans would taste so good. And being laughed at for eating them was nothing compared to what she'd been going through. She finally couldn't stand it. Wait, she cried. The truth is, I really love lima beans. I thought so, the old woman said with a smile. She took a handful of beans and popped them into Camilla's mouth. Said Camilla. Suddenly, the branches, feathers, and squiggly tails began to disappear. Then the whole room swirled around. When it stopped, there stood Camilla, and everything was back to normal. I'm cured, she shouted. Yes, said the old woman. I knew the real you was in there somewhere. She patted Camilla on the head. Then she went outside and vanished into the crowd. Afterward, Camilla wasn't quite the same. Some of the kids at school said she was weird, but she didn't care a bit. She ate all the lima beans she wanted, and she never had even a touch of stripes again.
Okay. So there she is, back to herself and eating lima beans. So let's go back and think about the theme of this. So what was the conflict in the story? What was the problem? What was going wrong? Not going the way it was supposed to. Conflict is that Camilla kept changing to fit who and what everyone else suggested that she should be. She wasn't being who she wanted to be. She kept changing to fit what everybody else suggested. So what is a theme in the bad case of stripes? So here I've got some multiple choice answers. So we're going to go through one by one and discuss whether it could be a theme or not. So is the theme that lima beans are healthy for you? This was about lima beans in part, but was it really telling you that lima beans were healthy and that you should be eating them? No details to talk about how healthy the lima beans were, just that Camilla liked them. So that's not a good theme. Doctors can solve medical mysteries. Is this book about doctors? Was the topic doctors? Did the doctors even solve the medical mystery in here? They didn't. They could not figure it out. It was the little old lady who solved the problem, right? So that can't be our theme. Always trust nice old ladies. Was this book all about the nice little old lady? Were we told that we should trust her? Was there some way and Camilla changed in how she was trusting nice little old ladies? No. So that is not a good thing. Let's look at D. Be who you are and not who others want you to be. Was the topic of this book being yourself? Do we know that Camilla would not be herself and she kept changing to fit who others wanted her to be? Did that work out very well? Didn't work for her. It wasn't until she decided to eat lima beans that she turned back into her old self. So a good theme is be who you are and not who others want you to be. Be yourself, not who others want you to be. So part of identifying the theme is also finding the key details that are going to support this theme. So our theme is be who you are and not who others suggest that you be. So let's look at this. The experts didn't have a clue, much less a cure. Does that support our theme? No, because that's not about being herself or changing to fit who others are. That doesn't go along with that at all. It was the first day of school and she couldn't decide what to wear. This one's iffy. Maybe if the detail was that she tried on 42 outfits trying to impress other people. Just saying it's the first day of school and she couldn't decide what to wear. How many times does that happen to you? Does that say be yourself and not who others want you to be? Not really in this one. I'm cured, she shouted. Yes, said the old woman. I knew the real you was in there somewhere. That fits with our theme, doesn't it? The real you was in there somewhere, right? And she was cured because the real Camilla came out, the Camilla that she wanted to be, or that who she was, came out. So that helps us figure out our theme. When she shouted, I'm cured, and the little old woman says, I knew the real you was in there somewhere. Then the specialist went to work on Camilla. They squeezed and jabbed, tapped and tested. Does that fit our theme? Nope, because that doesn't go along with Camilla being who she was supposed to be or who they suggested to be. This just tells us they were looking at Camilla. They're trying to figure out what was going on, but it doesn't say anything about her being who she was or changing to fit who other people thought she should be. What she really wanted was a nice plate of Lima beans, but she'd been laughed at enough for one day. And I have some typos in there, I'm sorry. So she'd been laughed at enough for one day. Does that go along with our theme? It does, because she really wants something that she likes, but she won't do it because everybody else would laugh at her. So she doesn't want to be who she wants to be because she wants to be like everybody else. And did that fit it? Did that work for her? It didn't. So our details are C and E. So how did Camilla change from the beginning to the end of the story? Let's look at this. At the beginning, she hated Lima beans, but at the end, she loved them. Is that a good answer for how did she change from the beginning to the end? Did she hate Lima beans at all? She liked Lima beans the whole way through the story. She wouldn't eat them, but she liked them. B, at the beginning, Camilla wanted to eat Lima beans, but she wouldn't because people would laugh. At the end, she ate Lima beans, even if people did laugh. Does that show how she changed? At the beginning, was she eating Lima beans? No, but she wanted to. Was she eating them at the end, even with people laughing at her? So B seems like a pretty good answer. She changed from not eating Lima beans because people would laugh to eating them even though people did laugh. Let's look at C. At the beginning, Camilla didn't care what people thought of her, but at the end, she did not like them laughing at her. That's kind of the opposite of the story, isn't it? She did care what people thought of her, and then at the end, she didn't mind. She didn't let them laugh at her, and she didn't care. So C is not a good answer. What about D? Camilla was the same at the end of the story as she was at the beginning of the story. Is that a good answer? Because she did change, didn't she? She changed by, at the beginning, not eating Lima beans, but wanting to eating them at the end and not caring that other people were laughing. So B is our best answer there. And what was the resolution to the story? Can you answer that? Camilla ate the Lima beans even though others made fun of her, and she returned to her normal self. So once she finally decided to go ahead and eat the Lima beans, then she turned into her normal self. And she learned not to care about others' opinions of her and was happy with who she was. She was so happy to be cured, and she decided it didn't matter anymore who was laughing at her. So your turn now. We've talked about theme. We've talked about finding the topic, asking yourself how the character has changed from the beginning to the end of the story, looking at the conflict and the resolution. So it is your turn now to show what you have learned or practice using what you know. And you're going to complete one of the activities on the choice board on your learning path and save the rest for another day if you'd like, but choose one, a different one than you did yesterday. And I will see you again tomorrow. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.